Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show to find out how those in sports, music, and entertainment made their mark. Joining me today is the head baseball coach at Rider University. He has over 900 wins, has been a head coach for over 30 years. He's an expert in leadership development, program transformation, sustainability, and growth mindset. He is one of very few with a PhD that is coaching baseball. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Barry Davis. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing fine, Tom. How you doing?
Doing well. Before we get going today, everybody, go to my website, beforethelightspod.com, and click on the vegas.com banners to get the best deals in Las Vegas for shows, hotels, and vacation packages. Go to beforethelightspod.com and click on the vegas.com banners. Barry, where did your love of baseball start?
Well, I mean, I've been asked this question a few times here in the last couple of months. I think sports in general, I was kind of plopped in front of the television set as a youngster. My dad liked sports. He was always on television. So somehow it just ended up being ingrained in me. And then, of course, I think around 5, 6, 7 years old, I think baseball was probably the first sport. Maybe my dad and I were out throwing, having to catch, that type of thing. But I was 7 years old, 8 years old, and I was trying out for Little League. Well, I wasn't trying out. I didn't want to, or at least I was afraid that maybe I was a little scared. I mean, as a kid, young man, I was a little, nervous, that type of thing. So my dad probably thought it would be best, let's ride down to the field. And he knew once I saw everybody running around playing that I would want to play. So I remember sitting in the truck. It was a cloudy day. The field was to the left of me, and it was like a little gravel parking lot there. And they were trying out. It was the Piedmont Little League. This is 1974. And I'm 8 years old. I'm about to turn 9 in July. And finally, after a few minutes, I don't know how long exactly, I said, I want to play. I want to try out. So I had my glove with me. And so I went out. And in my 8 years old, I mean, I'm running out there, and they go and they try out. And ever since then, I've been playing and coaching and loving it. And it's sort of been it's been my entire life, essentially. Both as a youngster, in high school, college, and then as an adult professionally. I've been doing this for over 30 years. So it's been everything to me. So it started with just a ride down to the field. And if I say no, maybe I'm not talking to you today. I'm doing something else. But I said yes. He knew I was going to say yes, I think. And that's why he took me down there, because he knew I wanted to do it.
Did you try any other sports then outside of baseball?
No, I played football into high school. I enjoyed that. I wasn't a big kid. I was relatively small. I'm 5'8", 5'9". On a good day, when I was in 8th, 9th, 10th grade, I mean, I probably weighed 100 pounds. I was always small. I was always a hard worker, and I think that's I was always had to do a little extra to keep up with everybody. I liked playing pickup basketball on the side. We've just played all three sports as a kid. Whatever season it was, that's what we played. Whether we played it in the street, we played basketball in the backyard, and there was no asphalt. We wore the grass out. It was just dirt, and we would go out there. I had a piece of plywood up on a tree, nailed in there with a basket, and I would just go out there and shoot hoops. By myself. You'd play the game, you'd make the last shot. I was a Tar Heel fan growing up, so if you remember the old Mitch Kupchak and Phil Ford. I mean, this is pre-Michael Jordan, and I was a big Tar Heel. Tommy Lagarde, Walter Davis, these guys, were like heroes to me growing up. So I love basketball as well. So whatever year it was, season, football, Green Bay Packers, they're my team, and they've always been my team. So it's just been a life full of sports.
Yeah, I did the same thing as a kid. Whatever season it was, we were playing, and I can't tell you, and you're probably the same as with me. The last time I have driven down a road and seen kids outside playing in the yard. I haven't seen it. I don't remember when.
I just were talking about that the other day. A friend of mine, a close friend of mine, a neighbor that I grew up with, now with Facebook and, and everything. He sends me a picture on Instant Messenger, and he's holding a Nerf football. And he said, remember the days we used to throw this thing all, and we did. We played pickup baseball games, like 4-on-4. The pitcher's mound was first base. If you hit it to right field, you were out. And all the time.
Yeah.
Not just, whatever, whenever we could do it, we would play. And it was a great time to grow up. And I think kids today don't understand that. And I think they're missing out. It just was a fun time. We didn't have all of these computers and, and all these other distractions. One game a week in baseball, maybe two with Monday night baseball. Football, you would see a couple games a week. There wasn't any ESPN. It was we went out and played. And I think that's why we enjoyed all the sports, and that's why I think that athletically it helps you. Mm-hmm. Kids are too single-minded today.
Yeah,
and it's not a good thing. And I would love to see it the way it was back when I grew up, but I don't think those days are long gone. But it's still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, same with me. I said to my niece just this weekend, believe it or not, I drank out of a water hose and I feel great.
Yes, same cup. We didn't care. No. It just was different.
Yeah,
and we picked up a ball and we went and played and picked teams and competed, and we learned how to compete. And I think that's another thing missing today. Winning and losing was important. It still is, but it's not the same.
Barry, when and why did you decide to become a coach?
Well, I think when I went to college, I went to Bridgewater College, was small liberal arts school, about an hour away. I grew up in Charlottesville. I think Charlottesville now means a little bit more than it used to mean to people. If they've never heard of it, now they have, probably for all the wrong reasons. But Charlottesville is a great town, great place to be. I went to Bridgewater. I wanted to be a high school coach. I knew that. And I wanted to I don't know why. I think I was good at sports. I liked being around it. I looked up to my high school coaches, my teachers, and I thought that's a really, it's a nice way to make a living to do that and to be a part of sports. And somewhere between my sophomore and junior year of college, I started thinking, I really enjoy this college baseball thing. And I think it's something I would want to do at that level. There's more involvement. There's more games. There's, you can really jump into it and it's an all year thing. And I think somewhere sophomore, junior year, master's degree, graduate school started to seep in. I started seeing things like posted around campus, and you go to grad school, GAs, and I ended up at George Mason University in Northern Virginia for a little bit, and I eventually ended up at Frostburg, where I intended to go to begin with, but they didn't have a GA. But I wanted to coach so bad, I literally got in the car, drove to Frostburg, Maryland. Had never been to that part of the state ever, and went up and looked around the campus, met some people, really, took the initiative to be the coach. Next thing you know, a job opens there. I'm the first phone call. And I had no connection to Frostburg State other than I just knew that they had a graduate program and they were going to have a GA eventually. And those are the kind of things that I think when I give my story or my message to people, how does a guy like myself get to where I'm at? It's those types of things that got me there. Is the initiative, the passion to want to do it so bad that you just did those types of things. So that's where the coaching started. And of course, once I got out of college, George Mason was great. Billy Brown hired me for nothing. He didn't even really know me. He just said, "Come on," and he helped me. And then I ended up at Frostburg, and Bob Wells was phenomenal coach, teacher, and I just kind of took it from there.
You just mentioned a couple guys. Were those some of your early coaching mentors then? And if so, were there any others?
Well, Bill, in college, I played for, he's now retired and he's kind of a legend at Bridgewater College, Kurt Kendall, but I was on his first team in 1986, and Kurt, kind of learned on the job. And I think when I was a junior and senior, he relied on us as, older guys at that level. And we kind of played. I didn't really need anybody to tell me to get going. That's the one thing I did have, for whatever reason. I had that inside of me. I didn't need anybody to tell me to hustle. I never remember anybody saying you're not working hard enough. Never. And I think that's another thing that plays out in coaching. But when I went to George Mason, it was the first experience of what I thought was a real coach, a real, like, he's organized. Scholarships, big schedule, travel, bus, plane, all those things were new to me. So even in 1988, it was opened my eyes to another level of coaching. Then I went to Frostburg, mainly because Frostburg allowed me to, they paid for my master's degree. George Mason wasn't. I was actually paying myself. Bob Wells, the opposite of Bill Brown. Bill Brown, smart baseball guy, very organized, knew how to talk to players. Wells was a teacher, kind of a technician, a strategist, probably not as organized as Billy Brown. Organized, but not like Billy, because everything was down to the minute, to the second, it seemed like. Taught me how to organize. Wells taught me more about the game and situations and how to look ahead. Brilliant, I thought. He actually coached Jim Riggleman. If you know Jim Riggleman.
Oh, yeah.
The manager had coached a number of years. Riggleman played for him as in the 70s. And even Riggleman today, after I'd gotten to know him, he said he was still far advanced. He was as good as any of the pro people that he coached with. So I got those two guys are probably the two. If I were to give my final talk, I owe a lot to those two.
You won 4 NJCAA Division III national championships, and you were coach of the year 4 times. You spent 10 years at Gloucester County College. As a former junior college athletic director myself, I understand the challenges at JUCO. If you would talk about the challenges of building a program at a Division III junior college that has no scholarships at all on athletic or academic.
Well, I thought, and when I now, and this, you reflect back, and I think reflection is such a crucial element to success, and looking back and seeing, why things happened and how did we get here? Gloucester County College, the long and short of it was, I found the job in a book that had the coaches listed. It was like a guide, an information guide of every school in the country, and I had just recently interviewed at Gloucester State, which is now Rowan University. Big, Rowan University. If you haven't looked that up, that's a school that's really grown. But Gloucester State, I was one of the finalists. I did not get the job. So I'm sort of down, but I'm going through this book. I'm going through all these schools, and I got to this school, Gloucester County College, and I saw where it said baseball open, which makes, this isn't even an advertisement. This is just a book, a manual. It said open. So, and I saw where it was in Sewell, New Jersey, and I'm like, is that near Glassboro? I was literally just in Glassboro a couple of weeks before. And I looked at the zip code, and the zip code had a couple numbers that was close to Glassboro. So I'm like, it might literally be right there. Sure enough, it's the same county. Glassboro is in Gloucester County. So I pick up the phone, I call, and it's open. Then I call a guy who helped me get the interview at Glassboro. He calls the athletic director. This is another gentleman named Tony Escrow. He was an administrator in the county, the bordering county, whose son played at Richmond, who I coached against when I was at Mason. So it's all connecting here. I end up getting interviewed there at this place. And before I was done, and this is probably the question of the year, he asks me in the interview, can you teach archery? Well, I've never taken an archery class. I've shot maybe 3 bows in my life, even though I grew up in Virginia. I was not a bow hunter. And of course, my answer is sure, I teach that. I mean, that's not a problem. I teach archery, big deal. So by the end of the interview, he had me coaching there for 10 years. He said, I hope you're here for 10 years. And it's just part-time now at the time. I didn't care. So I get the job. And eventually it turns into a full-time job within the year. Guy retires. Everything is just falling into place. The field's a mess. There's no dugouts. There's no water. The schedule the previous year played 22 games. They were 14-8. And I thought to myself, this is perfect. There's nothing here that would attract anyone to this job. But once I got into it, we recruited, we played, we started. I mean, I just basically took over. And every year we made some improvements to the field, raised some money. And then eventually we got our team together. 92, they changed from Division I to divisions. They went from just 1 to 2 and 3. So that was luck. I mean that just happened to happen. So we get in the tournament. We play all these Division I schools early in the year, and then we get into our tournament. Now we're playing all Division III schools that have the same resources to an extent as we do. And I had some really good players. We go to this World Series, the first one they ever had, and we won it. And then we won the second one they ever had. And we went to that tournament 8 of the 9 years my first 2 years we were Division I, which we played in the tournament, but we didn't win. Played well, didn't win. 8 of the last 9 years I was there, we were in that tournament. It was like a Gloucester County tournament. And even today, if you look it up, Gloucester County's ranked in the top 5 every year. They're in the mix every year. And I feel I'm very proud of that. But that's how it started. And I, we had dugouts at the end. We had a new backstop and we had water on the field. We did a lot of things. I mean, I was out there pumping water, raking the feed, pulling weeds, spraying the warning track. I mean, I've done all of that.
Yep.
So, but that was and I was 24 years old when I got the job. And that experience taught me quite a bit. As you know, junior college, you got to do a lot of extra things.
Yes.
And even today, I look at my coaches, and I'm like, I've done everything you've done. I've done it more. So sometimes I don't feel sometimes I want to go out there with them still and pull the weeds and pick up the trash and rake the field. I still do that. But yeah, that's where it started. And in junior college, it was perfect. It just was perfect. And then I went from there.
I like how you mentioned that you have connections and things fall in place and people get breaks. Because everybody's always said you don't burn a bridge, but you never know a connection you have that may come back to help you get a break that you need. And it sounded like you had some of that stuff line up for you to get you started on your path to where you are today. I want to jump just a little bit forward from what you were talking about, the consistency that you had built there. How does a team, regardless of sport, become and then stay consistent?
Well, somewhere, there's always winning, and there's traditions, winning traditions and losing traditions. Prime example that everybody would be aware of is Alabama football. I mean, Alabama football for years, it just has this tradition of winning. And then, although they went through some seasons of mediocrity, they still had that tradition. And I think what helped is that there really wasn't anything else around us. So I had the opportunity to make Gloucester the best junior college baseball program in South Jersey. I think small wins, little wins, like, just getting into the tournament. Maybe your first player gets drafted or signed professionally, and you take those little small wins and expound on them. And then, like, things that happen, you start stacking them on top of each other. And what happens, it's almost like compound interest. It starts to just kind of seep out. And then it's like the process. Everybody talks about the process. I think we were doing the process back then. We just didn't call it that. We didn't say, hey, you got to stick to the process.
Mm-hmm.
We just put our head down and we try to do everything right, get the right kids, do things at a high level, expect a lot, have high standards. And then if you get the right people together, those kind of things can happen. Now, if I don't get the right people or I don't have the proper support, which I did from Ron Case, who was my athletic director, the gentleman that hired me retired, Ron Case takes over and he lets me make all these mistakes, but he kind of guided me and mentored me, but he let me do it. And I think that's how it happens. I mean, even at every school I've been, there's always been the opportunity to improve. Every school I've taken over was not winning when I took over, or they did not have success, at least in the previous 2 to 3, 4 years. Ryder had great success in the 70s, 80s, a little bit in the early 90s, but had like a period of a decade of, they weren't as good as they had been. Georgia Southwestern had like one good season in the late 90s when I took over. And they were kind of on the downswing. So every place I've been, has the ingredients to improve. The elements are there. I think Gloucester, I kind of made it myself. I've made it, I would say, without knowing, I'm 24. I mean, think about when you were 24, 25 right. years old. You don't know anything. You don't know anything.
You think you do.
You don't know what you don't know, what you know. So you just know how to work hard and you have a passion, and that sort of happened. And I had great confidence in what I was doing, but I never really had the mentor. I didn't stay around Billy Brown long enough to really know other things. I didn't stay around Bob Wells long enough. I was only there a year each. So I learned a lot, trial and error. And I'm a lot smarter now. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm as good as I was back then in terms of confidence. I always think I was really confident as a young person. I was invincible. Now it's like I'm smarter. I kind of know the ropes a little better, and I enjoy where I'm at now in my career. But junior college, building those teams, it's stacking those little wins on top of each other, and then people recognizing it. And then all of a sudden you get that break and boom, it seems to take off.
What did you take from junior college and then from Georgia Southwest State that you're using today at Ryder?
I think the one thing of my overall philosophy of the system of how we play on the field, our practices, our game strategy. I mean, baseball is, kind of, it hasn't really changed a lot. I mean, there's a few rule changes here and there, but it's still 9 innings, 27 outs, throw strikes, make the routine play, hit the cutoff man, hustle, get a bunt down, all of that. So it is execution. But I think that I was organized. I took that. I took the strategies of the game, the intensity that I brought personally to the game. That has not changed. And I would say I've perfected it, because it's never perfect, but I've gotten our system, our practices, our way of going about a game and teaching it, explaining it. It's all just every year it's gotten a little better. And I brought everything from Gloucester to Southwestern to Ryder, and I can teach it. It's funny because like you go months without practice, then you walk out there and it's like it just comes right back to you.
Yeah.
And that's just the old Malcolm Gladwell, outliers 10,000 hour rule. To be an expert at something or to be very good at something, it just becomes easy. Like John Maxwell, the great leadership guy, is giving this speech, and he goes, how do you think that I do this? I'm not nervous. I feel like I'm amongst friends. I'm out there. And he walks up to this lady and he goes, you know how I do this? Because I've done this 12,000 times. And that's what these practices are like. You just, what to look for. We learn new things to incorporate, but generally the core is the system. You know what to look for mistake-wise. We've done it so many times. Like, I got to practice today. There'll be something that happens today that I've seen 1,000 times over these 30 plus years? And then, now can we correct it the right way? Different kid, different way he handles things. That's all the psychology that you learn. Today's kids is so much different than the kid in 1990.
Yeah, I've always said repetition is a tremendous key to success. If you can continue to do something over and over. Now, if you're doing it wrong, that's different. But if you're doing it the correct way, it gets ingrained.
Right. And it just becomes habit, we tell the story, the old story of, the dog, he pees on the couch, he poops in the house, you stick his nose in it and you throw him out the door. On the 28th day, he sticks his own nose in it and jumps out the door by himself. It's like you just do it over and over and over, and it just becomes habit, just like your personal, like today or this week. What is my workout schedule personally? What am I doing? What's my AM routine? When I get up, I make coffee, I get this book out. I do journaling, whatever it is, it becomes a habit, and you have to make those habits. And a lot of times they're triggered by something that you do,
Mm-hmm.
It's just one little trigger that'll make you think, okay, I need to go and do this. And it becomes a habit. I think working out, eating right, those types of things are personal habits that you try to ingrain and into yourself. And that's with everything. Every day that you live, you're looking to have a purpose, and you're doing things intentionally and deliberately.
Barry, did you always want to become a D1 coach, or did it just kind of gradually transform to where you are? Was that the pinnacle for you, or is the pinnacle even higher?
Well, I think originally, yes. You want to be Division I coach because that's the highest level that there is. I've always thought, okay, I'm good enough to be able to coach at the ACC, SEC level, the Power 5 level. Back then, there wasn't a Power 5, but you knew that there was a gap between those schools. I grew up in Charlottesville, UVA. I've been to plenty of basketball, football games as a kid growing up, and I just thought it would be that is a goal I set my sights on, and I think now that I'm older, I don't think that every coach should. If that's what you want to do, great. But Division II, Division III, there's some great coaches that coach at those levels, and you certainly can fulfill, a lifetime dream of being an educator and a teacher. But I did have Division I, and I did have greater, there's a next level above rider that I wanted to attain. And I think that I've had enough success, but all the luck that got me here, I haven't had that luck. In the last, I'd say 2015, we were a very good team, won the league. That was an opportune time to find a job, but never really, got in the mix to a job that, could either pay more and have more resources and play at that level. So it looks like this is it. This is where I will probably end my coaching career. And then the next pinnacle is speaking, teaching, writing, and trying to take the experiences that I've had and help other people.
May 15th, 2017, you became a member of the 900 Wing Club, defeating in-state rival Monmouth 6-5. Couple questions there. One, how many games did it take to get to 900? Was it first time, second time?
Oh no, it took a while. That wasn't the greatest team I ever had. I think at the time, she's my wife now, but she was my girlfriend at the time, and we're like she wanted to be there for the 900th win, and I'd have to go back and look. I think we had Princeton beaten, and that would have given me 899, but we ended up tying, so I went like a couple weeks without getting it. And finally on the last game of the regular season, no, it wasn't, it was the last weekend before the end of the season, it was a conference game. but I would have eventually gotten it. But it was fortunately I got it at home against Mama. But it wasn't like we just rolled right through the 90s into the 900. It took a while, a lot longer than it needed to be.
Reflecting back on 900 wins, and I know you've had a lot of good players and good assistants that help you get to where that. I understand all that, but reflecting back over 900 plus wins now in your career, what does it mean for you personally from where you started?
I never thought about, how many wins I could get. I just thought about maybe winning the next game and, having a really good team and competing and hopefully getting to the tournament and playing in the championship. I think the fact that I won my 100th game at some point, that was fun, and then I don't understand. I never really looked at it as much I didn't realize I would coach 1,600 plus games. I think I'm somewhere in that neighborhood now, almost 16. I don't know exactly. It's up there. But I never really thought about the number of wins. I think about it a little bit now because you're kind of closing in on 1,000. And I think, you don't get into this to say I won 1,000 games, but it's like, all right, well, I've coached this many games and played this many games, and maybe one day I'll be fortunate enough to reach that. And if I didn't, I think I could say to myself, I gave everything I had, and I was fortunate to have the players and the situation and the coaches to guide me. But the 900 was a fun day because it put us in the tournament, and it was an important win. You always want them to be important, but I never really thought about, how many, but 1,000 would be fun. It would be interesting. I mean, not too many people, I guess, could say that. And, so that would be a small goal, because to win that, you have to win games, and hopefully they'll be important ones.
Yes. Speaking of coaching trees and people helped you and you've helped others, you've had 4 former assistants, 2 former players that are now head coaches. How does that make you feel that people that you've had an impact on now are leading their own teams based on what you've taught them?
I think another interesting feeling that I never thought about, because you're always like you're focused and you're coaching, and you didn't really, I was young, so I feel like, I never looked at myself as I'm the head guy and I'm in charge and I'm teaching you. But slowly, as this started to happen, guys would go on and get jobs or end up coaching. I thought, okay, well, maybe what I've been doing is helping them. And I didn't really realize that. Now I am totally bought into trying to help assistant coaches that I have now. I probably do less than I used to do because I feel like I can help them. But all those guys that coach with me, maybe they looked at it differently. Maybe they took some things that I was doing and they were able to implement that into their programs. I just know that I teach. I try to I guess this would be a really good way to explain it. I teach and coach the game as if all the people that are there are going to be coaches.
It's a great way to look at players.
So if I had a young man, and his name was Kenny Bouillon. He was a junior college kid. He wasn't I should say he wasn't a great student. He didn't like school. All right. So he's taken my baseball class. Of course, he misses the written test, for bringing him in. I said, okay. I said, I want you to tell me 6 ways to score from first and third with 2 outs. And on the other side, your next question is, I want you to list 4 ways to defend it. He wrote 6 pages he coached, and I didn't know on his piece of paper. I kept he just kept writing and writing. And then that right there told me that I am teaching, at least to him. He knew more about first and third defenses than some high school coaches. I'm almost certain of that. And I think that was the first indication that, I'm going to coach these guys as if they're going to coach. And I would like to think the players that I have now could run a bunt defense, could run a first and third. Some won't be able to do it because they're afraid to talk in front of people. As you know, it's, talking in front of people is like the number one fear. And, the old Seinfeld joke is, dying is number two. You'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy, that whole joke. And it's true. People don't like talking in front of people. But I coach the coaches. I coach the players. Because one day you're going to coach your kid. You're going to coach your kid, and you're going to have to know some fundamentals, and you're going to have to know how to execute a rundown and a relay, and even as simple as footwork around the bag and that type of thing. So I think that is how this has evolved and happened. And I get phone calls from time to time from those guys asking me questions, like I call the other people. What do you think? What should I do? All of us need to have our own board of directors. I think that's one of the things that I stressed. I learned in my studies that the great leaders have people that they go to. They don't necessarily. They're not just the only person. They have people that they talk to. They're board, and I think everybody should have their own board of directors.
Coach, what is your definition of the word transformation?
Well, I think transformation is identifying a problem, developing a vision and a plan to change what's going on at the time. We found the problem. We're gonna make a change. We're gonna have a plan, and then we're gonna execute it, and then we're gonna communicate that vision to our people. And that's essentially where it starts. And I think that's where everything is geared. And we try to get everybody aligned together, working uphill in the same direction. The buy-in is important. I think they have to buy into you, the leader. And I think once they buy into what you as a person, because they trust you and it's safe, and they know that they can lean on you in tough times. And then I think that's how transformation begins: is vision, communicate the vision, eliminate the barriers and the obstacles, and have a plan that we all can agree on. And there's adjustments along the way, but that's it in a nutshell, I think.
For leadership, it's talked about a lot. Everybody talks about leadership and definitions and what you can do to be a leader and all that stuff. The question I would like to ask is, how does somebody know whether or not they are a leader or a follower?
Well, one of the great quotes from someone that I can't even name is, I'll say this. My son wanted to go to West Point.
Okay.
He was a student at Fork Union Military Academy in Virginia. And this is the first time I had heard this. I sat in a room with a counselor from West Point, an officer, and he said, you can never be a good leader until you learn how to be a good follower. And you have to learn to take direction. And I think leadership is sometimes, you're born with certain characteristics. However, you're not born to be leaders. You're kind of made. You're developed into leadership. There's, like I said, there's a lot of, getting people to do what they don't want to do and enjoy it. I think I've seen that come across it's from time to time as definitions of leaders. It's just the person that is willing to step outside the box and be vocal, set an example, and earn the respect by their work ethic and their actions. And I think a lot of guys, at least in the baseball world that I've been around, they gravitate towards that. The followers they can never be decisive. They can never make the tough decisions. And I think the leaders are not afraid to make mistakes. It's okay. Again, the word safe. When I have guys on my team, I give them opportunities to develop. We have our own. Well, we don't do a lot of it now because of COVID as much, because we can't really meet like we had done in the past. But we have like a leadership council where they get input and they talk to me freely without reprimand. Talk to me. And I think you identify the people that you think can take that and take it to another level where they can improve. We have a young man on our roster that I think has professional ability. He's a good kid. I got him a book on leadership, on the process. It's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. It's a great book. It's a short book. So I'm going to give him a copy of that and let him read that. And then, of course, he can give it back to me and I can move the book around. But that's a book that teaches you about leadership and the process. And I think, all of those things, not everybody would get that book on our team, but I think he would accept it and use it in a lot better way than a lot of other young men. But we want all our guys to lead. And I think that's we want, or they're all, and we tell them that, make a decision. You don't need me all the time to tell you what to do, and then of course, when they do it, you give them a pat on the back and you pump them up and you build confidence that way. And I think, communication's huge in leadership, and being clear and expectations. And then the other thing is, when I make a mistake and I know I've made it, I just say, hey, I screwed up. My fault. You're right. And that happens every day, somewhere. And, and that's a good thing. And I think they see that I am, I have fallacies and I'm vulnerable and, I'm not perfect. And and it allows them to understand that it's okay to make mistakes. And it's kind of fun every day to try to, build leadership and to, kind of guide these young men in a direction that is a positive one.
Before I ask the next question, listeners, check out my other podcast. The Golf Zone podcast takes every phase of golf and makes it one. If you love golf, you're going to love the Golf Zone podcast. We have free golf giveaways. Go to golfzonepodcast.com and fill out the information. Subscribe to the show. You're going to love it. Our last show was with Bobby Clampett. So check out, if you're a golf fan, the Golf Zone podcast. Coach, how does one get a growth mindset?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, nobody had ever told me to hustle. I always knew that's how I was wired, and that's how my DNA was that way. I think those that don't understand that education is as important as it is needs to be constantly told, given examples of why it's important for you to read. It's important for you to watch documentaries, to, the History Channel podcasts such as this one and other podcasts. The information is just, it's everywhere. I mean, if you want to know how to do something, you don't have to go very far to find out, who's been successful, how were they successful. I think it's exciting for people to experience it and to see that it is beneficial to continue to learn. I think we're in a college setting, so we would like to think everybody here understands the importance of education and that you need to continue to learn things and read things and study people and talk and get around people that are smarter than you. It's the thing. It's like, if you show me who your friends are, I will be able to tell you where you're headed. And that happens a lot when you're 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. If you're hanging in the right crowds, the people that are wanting to go this way, you're going to have a tendency to follow along. And then you're going to be one of those guys bringing other people with you, as opposed to the opposite. The growth mindset, the lifelong learner in you, everybody has the ability to do it. I think you have to want to learn. Mm-hmm. I think you have to want to make yourself better. Of course, the smarter you are, the more you know, the better you're going to be. Pat Williams would give this talk, the former vice president of the Orlando Magic. He said, read every day, read an hour a day. If you read an hour a day, you'll be able to read a book in a week. Let's just hypothetically say we'll read 50 books a year. There's a lot of book reading reading. He says, read any 5 books on one subject, you become an expert at that subject. So anyway, 50 books a year, say you do that for 10 years, that's 500 books. And the question he asked, would that make a difference in your life? And I think, yes, it would have to make a difference. Now, the other side of it, what I do is I read the book, and then I go back to the same book, and then I go into my journal or in my notebook, and I go through and I take notes and I pull out what I think are the most important parts of the book, because not every word in the book is you're hanging on. You know, they're good, they're stories or concepts, but there's certain things in that book that I need to remember. So I write them down and I refer to them. And I think that's part of the learning process that's enjoyable for me, because every time I read a leadership book, I just finished Culture Code for the second time. The reason I'm reading it for the second time is because I lost the book, and I couldn't find it. So I'm like, oh, I highlighted this whole book. Now I got to go back and read it again. And I did. And it's funny too. The second time I read it, it seemed a little different because my mindset was a little different. It was a couple years in between reading, but I just finished that. And I think that's important. I think it's fun to learn to know as much as you can, especially about a subject that you have passion about. And my passion was coaching. So I tried to learn as much as I could about coaching. Now I'm gearing more towards leadership and that type of thing. And I enjoy writing and researching things as well.
As we wrap up here, Coach, your thoughts, and this is more like to help me with people that I have this conversation with, people who say or think the game of baseball is just too slow.
Well, I see their point. I mean, I can see where there's, you sit there and you're staring at the screen and you don't really understand. Baseball is a smart person's game.
It's a great game.
I'm not saying that all the other sports, they're not smart. But baseball, every time that pitch is thrown, the count changes. The situation changes. What pitch did he throw? Is he going to throw it again? Did he throw it in? Did he throw it down? Is he coming up? Is the hitter a guy that's aggressive? Is he a good two-strike hitter? The umpire has some flexibility there. The score, the inning, where the runners are, the infield up, the infield back. Do the outfield play no doubles here? What do we do? Opposite field, the count's 0-2. The pitcher, does he has a pattern? Does he not check the runner? There's just things constantly going on in a game.
Yes. And
I think if you look at it that way, I believe it or not, baseball is not my favorite sport. Football is. Baseball to me, though, I can pick up any game now and watch it, and I don't have to watch the best teams or my favorite team or my favorite players. I watch the game. Watch what they do. What's the manager doing here? Are they hitting and running? Are they running and hitting? There's a difference. There's a difference between a cutoff man and a relay man. What is it? And I love listening to the broadcasters talk. Keith Hernandez is one of my favorites. I'm not necessarily a Mets fan or even a Hernandez fan, but I love listening to him break down the game. And that's one gentleman that I love listening to, because he does say that. Ron Darling's also on the broadcast, and I see a lot of Mets games because my wife is a Mets fan. But I do love listening to him, and I think that's the difference. Is that baseball, it's more fun when you know that, when you know those things, and teaching it is fun to teach and explain to people that really want to know. I mean, I was, somebody might say, well, why didn't he catch that? Well, he tried, I mean, he misread it, or the ball was hit too hard. He was in the wrong position. It's a great sport. It's probably the best game ever invented. 90 feet is perfect, because if it's 91, it's too far. And if it's 89, it's too short.
That's right.
And it's, if you bobble it just enough, the right guy running, you can't get him. But if he's slow, you got time. It's amazing. And if you go to the game, you'll see something you've never seen before most of the time.
Coach, how do people connect with you?
Well, you can do a number of ways. One, Twitter, Barry Davis 42. I also have a website that I've just started, barrydavis.co. You can go on there, sign up. I have 5 pillars of transformation, leadership, and culture change that based on a qualitative study I did with 9 elite baseball coaches. You can get that. So those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me, Twitter and through my website at barrydavis.co. And I am available. I have reached out. I've done some speaking in small groups with certain organizations. And, I'm willing to help out and talk to as many people to try to help them out and get them moving in the right direction with all these topics that we discussed today.
Coach, thanks for taking time out of your baseball schedule. I wish you the best of luck this season and being on my show.
Thank you, Tommy. I really appreciate you having me. I really enjoyed it.
If you'd like to join our Patreon group and get the extra 5, which is coming up with Dr. Barry Davis, go to patreon.com/beforethelights. That's patreon.com/beforethelights. Follow us on Instagram at Before the Lights Podcast. If you want show notes and links to things from the show today, go to beforethelightspod.com, click on the episode page, and I'll have all the show notes there for you as well. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, a salute, a chin chin.